So the DNC just had elections for the next DNC chair and also the vice chair. Many of you probably are aware that Marianne Williamson was also running as one of the candidates for the DNC chair. We're going to start with her. I'm going to get to who the new DNC chair is and something that he said that is very troubling. And in my opinion, I told you guys early on, I did not think that Marianne was going to get, win this position, obviously, right? Like the donors don't want her. It's really all about who the donors wants. It's not about who has a better message for the party when it comes to the political issues. It's about who the donors want. So I said that. I knew that. As you can imagine, Marianne did not receive the votes to become the DNC chair. I want you to hear something that she said before that vote was cast. It says the Democratic Party tells the truth, but we need to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Listen to this here. This is all of the candidates here on the stage. This is the DNC chair forum. Check this out.
Ms. Williamson, same question to you. How do you handle voter prejudices while also addressing their very real substantive policy concerns?
Well, they are not mutually exclusive at all. We tell the truth. You've talked a lot about how do we handle all the lies and the disinformation. We handle all of that by being greater truth tellers. The Democratic Party tells the truth, but we need to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I don't care. You can look all across the board at anybody's race or ethnicity. They are being economically screwed in America today. And that is the truth that everybody needs to hear in terms of the electorate who's not getting what they need from us. And I was a TikTok sensation when my presidential campaign began, and I know why. Because I was telling the truth, that there is a matrix of corporate powers. It has to do with insurance companies, pharmaceutical companies, big food companies, big ag, big chemical companies, gun manufacturers, big oil and defense contractors, and they are holding our nation hostage. Their short-term profits have replaced humanitarian and democratic ideals. Their undue influence on our government has turned Washington into a system of legalized bribery. These are what Franklin Roosevelt called the economic royalists. And when people see us standing against them, what they see now is the Democratic Party trying to have it both ways. We want to help people, but we won't go so far where if we cross the line, that's going to offend our donor base.
I want to pause there and I actually push back on that part. The part where Marianne says they want to help people. I don't think they really do want to help us. I think most of the politicians that are in Congress, I can't speak for the Republican Party, but for the Democratic Party, I think most of those people have gotten pretty comfortable with where they are. And they've already been told since the first year that they joined Congress that they need to not rock any boats with dim leadership. And I think many of them have chose to accept that. And that's why they're still there. So you see Cori Bush is not there. You see Jamal Bowman's not there. You see the people who have been pushed out, right? So I think that I push back on that. I don't even think that they really do want to help. And I used to believe that. I'm like, yeah, the Democratic Party, they really do want to help us. But there's just so many obstacles in their way. And the more I educated myself and I learned more about the money and how money works in politics, I started to realize, no, it's not really about that. You may have a couple of politicians who really do care, but that empathy that they have for you can only go so far if they want to continue to keep their position. This is why Bernie Sanders, who's a registered independent, who still runs through the Democratic Party and caucuses with the Democratic Party, this is why he was able to speak to the needs of working class Americans when it comes to healthcare, college, living wage, etc. But even he wasn't willing to push too hard to rock the boat to tell you Bernie or bust, or to tell you that's it. They stole it from me. They made Hillary the nominee. I'm going to start third party. Think about where we could be now if that would have happened. So I don't believe, and I had to learn this over the years, I really don't believe they do want to help. I think most of those people are career politicians and they're doing what they need to do to make sure that they can still afford the luxury lifestyle that they now have. And they've given up on trying to actually help the people. I really do believe that.
Democratic Party has to do is do the right thing. Stand for your values. Stand for the working people of the United States. Unequivocal advocacy. Show them, as Fez was saying, people are not dumb. People are smart. And when they see that, they will vote for us. They'll come home if we do the right thing.
So that was one of the answers that Marianne Williamson gave there at the DNC chair forum. Again, of course, she did not win that. And it was Ken Martin who actually won. Man, this guy is like when I saw this guy, his name is Ken Martin. I was not familiar with him before, but if you want to talk about honey, you want to sit back and watch paint dry, because that's the kind of energy that Ken has. Ken is boring. And he also says something pretty cringe. But Ken Martin is now your new DNC chair. I want you to hear some of the things that he had to say.
My friend, our next DNC party chair, Ken Martin.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, look, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. I've just got a few minutes left and I got a long speech. So thank you to Peggy, my great friend. Thank you to Supervisor Solis, and of course to my wonderful friend from Labor, Sandra Lee Williams, for her support. I want to take a moment to thank my friend, my brother, our fantastic chairman, Jamie Harrison, for his wonderful work. Look, to my fellow Democrats, we got punched in the mouth in November. There's no two ways about it. I'm running for DNC chair because it's time to get off the mat, to dust ourselves off and to get back in this fight. A lot of people in this country right now are going to need us to walk and chew gum at the same time, meaning we're going to have to fight the extremes of Donald Trump while we make a sharp case to families in both red states and blue states about why they should trust us with their votes. The thing is this: when the Trump agenda fails Americans, which it most certainly will and already has, we have to be there with a legitimate alternative to this chaos. You know, while Donald Trump was being sworn in, Sandra and I marched with labor leaders outside of Ebenezer Baptist Church, the home of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
That's nice. It's nice that you march with labor leaders outside of Ebenezer Baptist Church. That's great. But I got to take another step here. It really doesn't matter to me if you marching with labor leaders, and when it come time to vote, and when it come time for a call to give people a living wage, you voting against it or you're nowhere to be found. Because what good is the point of marching with the labor people and the labor leaders? Notice they said the leaders, not the actual work. Marching with the labor leaders if you're not out there to call for increase in the minimum wage, if you're not out there to call for a living wage, which is what we should all have, especially in a country as wealthy as the United States. So I don't need your virtue signal. Like, I don't need your, I was outside the church of Dr. Martin Luther King. No one gives a fuck. A lot of people have walked past that church, walked inside that church, toward that church, and turned around, and were not there for the Black community at all. And when you talk about the working class, you got to remember the majority of Black Americans are working class. So if you are not there when it comes time to call for a living wage, to increase that minimum wage, none of that performative bullshit that you did means anything to me. This is why the Democratic Party continues to struggle. This is why the Democratic Party has had difficulty since Barack Obama, because he said a lot of good things when he was running. This, and we got to do that, and we got to do that. And the moment he was in, he disappointed Black people the most of my generation. I didn't expect much from Biden. I knew that he was a segregationist who was friends with racists, and everybody wanted you to pretend this shit didn't happen. That's what I knew. But we expected more from Obama. So just continue to go downhill. So here we go. Well, we walk with this and we got to do that and da-da-da-da-da-da. And ain't none of that going to change, because Ken still supports billionaire money, which you'll see in a second. Let's continue.
As we march, in the streets of Atlanta, we sang the song, the old Union song, "Which Side Are You On?" For a pro-labor progressive like me, who is a guy who has carried a union card and organized for the labor movement throughout his life, that cut straight to my core. For the past few nights and for these brief moments of stillness that we get these days, I keep thinking about that song. As we move through the next year, Democrats need to ask ourselves each day, whose side are we on? Which side are we on? Are we on the side of the robber baron, the ultra-wealthy billionaire, the oil and gas polluter, the union buster, or are we on the side of the American working family, the small business owner, the farmer, the immigrant, and the students?
You are and have and continue to be on the side of the oligarchs. That's the side. Now, once upon a time, the Democratic Party wasn't that way, but not as long as I can remember since I've been alive. I've read about this, but I've never experienced that. You guys completely changed when you got in bed with the billionaire class, with Wall Street, with the military industrial complex. And I don't have to tell you, Ken tells you all on his own. Ken lets it slip out all on his own. Shout out to Matt Stoller for sharing this clip here. Listen to what Ken Stoller says about billionaires. Check this out.
Bad billionaires.
Here, thank you, Joe Martin.
There are a lot of good billionaires out there that have been with Democrats who share our values, and we will take their money, but we're not taking money from those bad billionaires.
Here.
Did everybody see what he just said? There's a lot of good billionaires out there, and we'll take their money. This just goes to show you, new boss, same as the old boss, honey buns. He's still going to take the billionaire money. They still want the money. Again, this DNC, candidate forum isn't so much about who would be best to move the party forward. It's more about who can we get into this position that's still going to be okay with taking billionaire money and appeals to the donor class. That's what it's about. They weren't going to vote for Marianne because you don't really appeal to the donor class because you've been calling out billionaire money too much. So they definitely weren't going to vote for her. So they picked this schmuck who says, oh, there's some good billionaires out there and we'll continue to take their money. No. Now, you just told us that you were out there in the streets with labor leaders. Now, how are you in the streets with the labor leaders and you say there's good billionaires when billionaires exploit labor? That's why you don't see me up on that stage. That's why you don't see them having this conversation with me. Those two things don't go together. If you're out there telling people that there are good billionaires, he is trying to convince the people that billionaires as a whole are not bad. And you should support the Democratic Party still continue to take billionaire money. But he also out there trying to tell you he walking out in the streets with the labor leaders. So no, that's the disconnect, folks. Because if you're willing to take the money from the billionaire class, those same donors are going to be against you giving people a living wage. Those same donors are going to be against you giving people or increasing the minimum wage. They don't even want you to do that. So don't tell me that there's good billionaires. I don't care who they are. God damn it. Some of you out there really like Taylor Swift and Rihanna and all these people. I give zero fucks. They're billionaires and they exploited people. And it can be done through different ways. So Rihanna starts a business and she says, I'm going to do makeup, yada, yada. Rihanna may not necessarily know at the time, she know now. At the time, she may not have known where that labor was coming from that was producing that product and what they were paying those people. That came out in the news. So these musicians that are billionaires, for example, don't forget they have other businesses on the side. So here he is to convince people, and look at the smile on his face. You got to be kidding me with this guy. So here he is to convince people that it's okay if they're a good billionaire. No, good billionaire and labor do not go hand in hand. You cannot say you are for the labor movement and you're okay with billionaires buying elections, because that's what they're doing. They're not just donating here and there. They're buying elections. But he won. Corny ass mofo. And then this is an interesting part. The vice DNC chair is David Hogg. Does everybody remember David? He was one of the surviving shooters from Parkland. Remember Parkland High School? There's David right there. So he is now the vice chair. And it says he was among 3 people elected to the position Saturday. during a meeting at National Harbor, Maryland. He said, "I'm deeply grateful to the members for their trust and belief in me, and I don't take it lightly." So remember, he helped organize March for Our Lives. Now, some people are saying, "Oh, wow, a younger person, this would be great." No, he already controlled. It's already control. I'm trying to tell you guys the people who get in those positions. Hogg has nudged Democrats to become less judgmental and more forceful in their messaging as the party dithers over what direction to take under the second Trump administration. He said, "It's time we stop surrendering, go on offense, and take the fight to Donald Trump. We need to show the public who we are again, to rid our party of its judgmental attitudes and do the work to win back every group we lost this year." So I'm gonna go ahead and call it now. Right? So he's here to help energize the youth, because remember, they lost the youth vote again this year. That's what he's there for. So notice what the organization is around: organizing to beat Donald Trump. I don't hear them talking about organizing to do anything for you. That's why I said, I don't believe they really do want to help you. It's just all about, how do we prevent another Trump-like figure from winning again in the future? Not what they're going to do for you. Whether you like Donald Trump or not, he told his base exactly what he was going to do for them. And that mofo didn't wait 2 weeks. The moment he got in, he started signing executive orders. So this is the difference. So if the Democratic Party is trying to go on offense, one would do that by doing something for the base, which they're not doing. So Marianne obviously did not get that nomination, and I want to show you what she had to say here. Listen to this.
In 1776, some very brave men signed the Declaration of Independence. I say that they were brave because if the British had won the war, all of them would have been hanged as traitors. With that signing, they infused into the founding of a nation principles that had never been there before. Principles of possibility. The very idea that anyone, no matter who they were, had the God-given right to thrive. The idea that God gave inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness to every human being, and that governments were instituted to secure those rights. That signing opened up a window of possibility after which the world would never be the same. But that's also where things got gnarly, because 41 of those signers were slave owners. That dichotomy was thus baked into the cake. That's the DNA of the American story, the big both and. With that signing, what we see is that from the very beginning, we have always, throughout our history and reiterated in every generation, including ours, been a reflection of the best that humanity is capable of and the worst that humanity is capable of. That struggle has been reiterated every generation. And yet, over time, the generations whose hearts were ablaze with possibility for justice and righteousness and goodness prevailed. The abolitionists prevailed. The women's suffragists prevailed. The early labor organizers prevailed. The desegregationists, the civil rights movement prevailed. It's our turn now. It's our turn now because in our generation, those who for their own ideological and financial purposes have no intention of seeing these great ideals of American possibility actually made manifest is not one particular institution. It's rather an economic paradigm. It's an economic paradigm that places short-term corporate profits before humanitarian and democratic ideals. And out of this paradigm, there has emerged a soulless, ethically bankrupt, perverse strain of capitalism that has become the governing principle of the United States of America.
Okay, we'll stop there. We're not going to play the whole thing, but Marianne obviously talks about like the capitalist issue, which is actually pretty surprising considering that after Ken Martin was selected, the guy who said, we're going to support those good billionaires. I'll take the money from the good billionaires. She goes on to say this. As I completed my speech at the DNC this morning, I thank those who supported my run. At this moment, what's important is for everyone to contribute in whatever we can to the challenge at hand. Given political realities, the best way I could do that was to end my campaign and heartily endorse the person I feel has the best chance of ending the billionaire funded corruption at the DNC, Ken Martin. Now, didn't you see me play the clip of Ken saying he does want to take money from the good billionaires? So why would Marianne go on to say he is the best chance of ending the billionaire funded corruption? He's not. Now, people were pushing her to leave this this party, and one of them is Complex. I'll bring him up here. Complex said, I wish you would just walk away and become independent. We would embrace you with open arms. The DNC has lost the narrative, and I fear there is no coming back. She responded to that and she said, my loyalty is not to a political party, but to my country. I appreciate what you're saying, but given what's happening, we don't have time for the Democratic Party to fail. If there's any possibility of transforming it, then I want to help. So here we go back to this again, right? So Ken becomes the new DNC chair. He tells you he'll still happily take money from good billionaires. So how are you going to transform a political party that is still taking billionaire money? You can't. So in that case, when Marianne says that she wants to try to transform it, she says doesn't have the loyalty to a political party. She does have loyalty to a political party. Her loyalty is to the Democratic Party. This is why the left doesn't win. This is why, like I said, the theme is the truth is all coming out. This is why the left doesn't win. This is why, like, the coalition that we had around Bernie Sanders didn't go further than it did. Now, it was a big movement, but it didn't go further because of the people who are in those positions at that time tell you we have to push back against billionaires and, of course, capitalism, the establishment. But in the end, they concede to such billionaire capitalism and establishment. The movement doesn't have a chance to grow and thrive. And then you have to start asking the question, are those people there to do the right thing, or are those people there to maintain the status quo in the end? I want you to hear what Kshama Sawant had to say about all of this. Again, former Seattle City Councilor Kshama Sawant came from the grassroots, ground up. Listen to what she says.
The Democratic Party has never been on our side. There will be no reforming it or changing it from within. It is a weapon of the billionaire class, like the Republican Party, and it needs to be destroyed, not collaborated with. The progressive Democrats and others are doing their level best to misdirect their anger and divide working people, particularly by trying to blame working class people for Trump's election. Meanwhile, Trump and the MAGA leadership want to redirect anger away from the billionaires and towards immigrants, trans people, and other oppressed groups. We need to reject all this. Unite working people, students, the poor, and the oppressed against these false scapegoating attacks and focus our fire on the billionaires and their system. This system, capitalism, does not work for us and will never work for us. Working people have enormous potential power. We build everything, we make everything run, and we outnumber the billionaires 1,000,000 times over. The billionaires are only able to get their way because they have succeeded in dividing us. They distract from by far the most important division in society, the capitalists who are wealthy beyond all reason versus the immense majority in society who struggle to survive.
We must expose this reality to unify the working class in the fight against the rich and to defend workers and oppressed communities against the mounting attacks from Trump, including the attacks on immigrants and trans people.
And that is the conference she has coming up in Seattle on February 22nd. And that is with Chris Hedges and Jill Stein, Fight the Rich, in their two parties. Shama and Jill were on the show recently to discuss that. And I think she has a really good point here. At the end of the day, the billionaires are sitting back and they're pointing fingers and they're laughing at all of us as we are, splitting among each other. Because as long as they do continue to have us divided between Team Blue and Team Red, then we're really not paying attention to what they're doing. Now, Ari, these are things that we really gotta pay attention to, folks. Gotta pay attention to it. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.